My brother made my life miserable for years, then ended up getting my wife pregnant. Now, after our parents cut him off and left me their $3 million inheritance, he's come crawling to me for help. My younger brother, Michael, has always carried this strange grudge against me. But if you're thinking it was because he was jealous, that's not it. He was actually the one our parents favored, definitely not me. Michael was the golden boy in the family. Mom doted on him constantly, cooked his meals, did his laundry, and even had me tutor him with his schoolwork. I was just expected to pitch in because we were brothers, but I never got that same level of care in return. Still, I let it slide since I was pretty self-sufficient from a young age. Maybe I set myself up for it by always being there for him without asking for anything back. He never lifted a finger to help me out, only came around when he needed something. While I was the quiet type, liked studying and keeping to myself, Michael was loud, aggressive, and more like our dad. I've always been honest and direct, never the kind to sugarcoat things, and I think that rubbed Mom the wrong way. She seemed to see me in a negative light because of it. Michael, on the other hand, could do no wrong in her eyes. I didn't mind the favoritism so much when we were younger, but it started to sting once he began picking on me. He made fun of how tall I was, mocked me for wearing glasses. He'd sneak into my room, read my diary, and then complain to Mom about what I wrote. When I'd get upset and tell our parents about him invading my privacy, they'd just laugh like it was harmless. But it wasn't just teasing, he did worse stuff. He almost broke my glasses once, and he used to put gross things in my food. One time, he actually dropped tiny stones into my cereal. Luckily, I noticed them before I bit down. When I told Mom, she brushed it off, saying that's just how brothers bond. Anytime we fought, he'd go straight for my insecurities. We went to the same school, and he knew a few kids were bullying me. Instead of sticking up for me, he joined and called me names like ugly loser or hairy monkey, and even encouraged them to rough me up, saying I was just a big failure. There was one argument, I can't even remember what it was about, where he looked me straight in the eye and told me to end my life. Most of his insults I could ignore, but that one hit deep. I was already struggling mentally back then, and hearing that from my own brother was crushing. I'm doing much better now, but I'll never forget that moment. Dad was usually busy with work, and Mom never seemed to care. Once, she even scolded me, saying it was my fault for setting Michael off. Things kept going downhill. During high school, Michael did something that still shocks me. He actually tried to light my hair on fire. And Mom, unbelievably, defended him, saying he was just messing around. Who even thinks that's okay? Thankfully, Dad finally stepped in. He realized how serious things had gotten and told Michael to knock it off or he'd involve the police. That was the first time Michael ever faced real consequences, and you could see he wasn't used to it. He looked genuinely caught off guard. Dad told him straight up that enough was enough, and that it was time he started showing some respect to his older brother. Later that night, he came into my room to talk. I never expected him to take my side. He'd always said how much Michael reminded him of himself, and honestly, that was pretty accurate. But that night, Dad admitted he'd been hoping for years that Michael would grow up, and now he could see that wasn't happening. Michael was turning into a full-blown bully. Hearing that from him meant everything. I almost cried. I ended up telling him everything. How Michael had treated me, how the kids at school were bullying me, all of it. Dad was stunned by how much I've been putting up with. The next day, he went straight to the school principal and made sure those bullies were warned there'd be real trouble if they kept messing with me. Later that evening, he signed me up for MMA classes at the local gym. He told me it was time to toughen up and learn how to stand up for myself. It might have looked funny, this bookish kid trying to learn to fight, but I was serious about it. I managed my time between studying and training, and honestly, those classes changed everything for me physically and mentally. Then one day, Michael pulled another stunt. He took the pocket money I'd been saving, money we earned for doing chores around the house. He just snuck into my room and helped himself to it, like it was nothing. I caught Michael just as he was about to ride off on his bike with his buddies. I told him to give me back my money, but he just laughed and said all I ever did was run crying to Dad. I don't know what came over me, but I swung and hit him square in the face. He looked shocked, stumbled backward, and I reached into his pocket to grab my money back. Then I gave him a little shove and let him fall. He started bawling, and honestly, it was kind of funny to see. But of course, Mom came rushing outside, fussing over him and trying to figure out what happened. When she found out I was the one who hit him, she was taken aback and started scolding me, saying I was supposed to be setting a good example. Michael looked pretty satisfied watching her chew me out. She even went to my dad and complained that I needed to be kept in check. Dad asked us both to explain what had gone on. I told him straight. I'd saved that money by working hard, and Michael had just taken it. Michael tried to play the victim, saying he needed it for a date and that, as his brother, I should have helped him out. But Dad wasn't having it. He told Michael he should consider himself lucky all he got was a punch, because anyone else might have called the cops. Dad went on to tell him that taking something that isn't his, no matter who it's from, is still theft. Michael didn't take that well. He threw a fit, probably hoping Mom would jump in on his side, but Dad stood firm. Realizing he wasn't going to get the outcome he wanted, Michael shouted that he hated me and stormed off to his room, slamming the door behind him. After that day, things shifted. Michael started keeping his distance. I think it finally sank in that he couldn't push me around anymore, and even Dad wasn't backing his behavior. For the first time in forever, I felt like maybe we were on even ground. He couldn't hit me or take my stuff anymore, so he went back to name-calling when no one else was around. As he got older, his attitude only got worse. He became short-tempered and angry all the time. If I asked him something, he'd ignore me or mutter insults like nerd or loser under his breath as he walked away. When he needed to tell me something, he'd go through Mom instead of speaking to me directly. I remember asking her once why he couldn't just talk to me like a normal person. She told me I needed to be more patient with him. I couldn't tell if he was just going through a rough phase or if he really hated me that much. Eventually, it all became too much, and I just wanted to get out of the house and away from the tension. I tried getting Mom to set up a proper sit-down so we could talk it out, but she always refused. Said she didn't want to be in the middle of it. Whenever I asked why Michael acted like that toward me, she'd just brush it off. Eventually, I left for college, a school I'd always dreamed of going to, and I got in on a scholarship thanks to my grades. Dad threw a little party for me, and even Mom looked proud. Michael, on the other hand, barely looked at me. He kept his distance, didn't congratulate me. Nothing. When I left for school, I felt a mix of excitement and deep relief. It felt good knowing I'd be free from all that negativity for the first time. Those first few months of college were like a breath of fresh air. I made new friends, enjoyed my classes, and finally started living without the weight of Michael's constant jabs. For once, I felt peace. In my second year, I met Amanda at a frat party through a mutual friend, and we hit it off right away. She came from a religious background, so having children before marriage wasn't something her family looked kindly on. But near the end of our final year, we found out she was pregnant, and we decided to tie the knot as soon as we graduated. Our wedding was small but filled with joy. Both our families came, and everyone seemed genuinely happy for us. At that point, I truly believed Amanda was the one. She felt like my perfect match. I'd always imagined a faithful marriage, the kind where you come home to the same person every day and build a life together. Even though I had a few women show interest over the years, I never gave any of them a second thought. I loved Amanda deeply, and hurting her was never even on my radar. But down the line, I found out about 2 affairs she'd had. One had gone on and off for years with a coworker who was also married. The other was a short-lived thing with an old boyfriend during a trip to visit her folks. Looking back, maybe I was too trusting. Maybe I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. Each time we hit a breaking point, I chose to forgive her. I didn't want our kid growing up in a broken home, and I truly believed we could move past it. The affair with her coworker happened when we were younger, and I chalked it up to immaturity and bad choices. And for a little while, it actually did seem like things were turning around. Even though I couldn't completely put my trust back in her, I tried my best to let go of the doubts. I figured that if I was choosing to forgive her, I had to really mean it and try to move forward. It's been 4 years since that second betrayal, and at the time, I honestly felt like I'd made the right call by giving her another shot. Amanda really did seem different, and for a while, things were good. We were happy and even making plans for the future, building our life together. But then, just 3 months ago, everything fell apart again. She sat me down and told me she'd been involved in another long-term affair, and this time, she said our son might not even be mine. Her words hit me like a freight train. I couldn't process what I was hearing. It was like my whole world tilted sideways. I was stunned, trying to wrap my head around what she'd just admitted. I asked her, barely getting the words out, why she would keep something that big from me, and how she could do something so destructive to our family. But she didn't react the way I expected. She was cold, almost like it didn't even faze her. She gave these vague, half-hearted answers that left me even more confused and hurt. It was like talking to a stranger. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to stop until I got them. Eventually, I pressed her hard enough that she told me the truth, and that truth knocked the wind out of me. She said the other man was Michael. I couldn't believe it. I looked at her, stunned, and asked what she meant. Amanda explained how it started years ago, back when I first introduced her to my family. She stayed at our place from Thanksgiving through New Year's. At the time, Michael was surprisingly polite to her, which I thought was great. I wanted her to feel welcome. She really tried to be part of the family, even spending lots of time with my mom. Eventually, she noticed how strained things were between Michael and me. When she asked about it, I opened up, told her the truth that the two of us didn't get along, and probably never would. She seemed to understand, but instead of staying away from him, she started including him in our plans, hoping it would help us reconnect. If we were watching a movie, she'd invite him along, and somehow we always ended up watching what he wanted. Michael and I did start saying a few words to each other, which was better than nothing, I guess. I remember the two of them playing video games together sometimes, but I didn't think anything of it. Amanda said there was a time when Michael opened up to her about going through a tough breakup. That's when they started becoming close. She told me he'd flirt with her a bit when I wasn't around. It started off small, but things eventually crossed the line. Just hearing it made me feel sick. The thought of my wife and my own brother. I couldn't believe it. Amanda said she felt guilty afterward and cut things off. That lined up with her sudden decision to leave before New Year's. I'd begged her to stay, but she insisted on going. When we were back at school, she acted normal, cheerful, even, so I didn't think twice about it. 2 weeks later, we found out she was pregnant. Amanda admitted she wasn't sure if the baby was mine or Michael's. With no way to tell, she decided to stay with me, said I was more dependable. That's why we got married. And suddenly, it all felt fake. The boy I had raised and loved might not even be mine. I asked her straight up if she was still seeing Michael. She nodded slowly. She said they kept in touch, that the chemistry between them never really went away. They'd meet up at hotels and tell me she was working late. Turns out, a lot of those so-called business trips were just romantic getaways with him. I asked why she even married me if she wanted to be with him, and she told me she didn't have the heart to end things. She said I was a good dad, and she didn't want to ruin our family. She told me she didn't know how to stop, that it just got out of hand. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but I was done. I was packing up and leaving. She broke down crying, begged me to forgive her, said she thought I'd at least yell. But I didn't. I just packed my things. She followed me, saying that if I really loved her, I'd fight for us. That every marriage goes through rough patches. When she realized I wasn't going to budge, she changed her tone. She said the divorce would ruin our son, and that kids need both parents. I reminded her that I might not even be his dad, and that hit her hard. She started sobbing, called me cruel, but I was just being honest. Looking back, I think part of the problem was that Amanda didn't believe I'd ever really leave. Maybe that's on me. I let too many things slide before, gave her too many passes. Sure, I loved her. But if I'm being honest, a lot of that love came from the life we'd built together, from believing we were raising a son together and had been together since college. Amanda kept begging me to believe it wasn't too late, that we could fix things. But I was done. My patience was gone. I couldn't believe anything she said anymore. Even if I tried to forgive her, I knew deep down I'd never forget that she slept with my brother. I've always believed in second chances, people make mistakes. But this crossed a line you can't uncross. So I left her crying at the door and checked into a hotel. The next morning, I went straight to my parents. I told them everything, how Amanda had been cheating on me for years, and with Michael. You could see the shock all over their faces. True to form, my mom tried to defend him at first. Michael would never do that to his own brother, she said. But I had a plan. I asked them to stay quiet while I called Michael, right there in front of them. I needed to catch him off guard, make him think we were just talking one-on-one. He picked up, and I got straight to the point, asked him about the affair. At first, he denied everything, acted like I was crazy. But when I told him Amanda had already confessed, he flipped, started blaming her, calling her names, saying it wasn't his fault that women were drawn to him. Said he was the better-looking brother. That was all I needed. I told him I was going to tell everyone. He laughed, said no one would believe me, called himself the golden child. I just laughed back, thanked him for confirming it, because my parents had heard every word. That shut him up real fast. My mom stared at him in disbelief, finally realizing what he'd done. She asked for an explanation, but all he could do was stammer. He tried to twist it, blame Amanda, act like it wasn't really his fault. But it was too late. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, vindicated. After all the pain, all the years Michael had looked down on me, all the gaslighting and favoritism, I finally had the truth out in the open. Michael wasn't the golden child anymore. He was just a guy caught red-handed. Then my dad, usually the quiet one, asked for the phone. His voice was calm but heavy with disappointment. "Michael," he said, "what you've done isn't just a betrayal of your brother. You betrayed this family. You slept with his wife and kept it going even after they were married. That's not a mistake. That's a choice, over and over again." He didn't raise his voice, but every word hit like a hammer. "I raised you both to respect family, to be loyal and decent. What you've done, that goes against everything I tried to teach you. And now, you'll face the consequences. From this day forward, you're cut off. No more college fund. No more support. You're on your own." He paused, then added, "Let's see how much of a man you are without my money." And me? I stayed calm. Sure, a part of me wanted to scream at Michael. But watching my dad finally hold him accountable, that was better than anything I could have said. Michael looked like he didn't know what hit him. Mom still tried to defend him a little, kept saying he was just confused or made a mistake. But Dad shut it down and hung up. Later, Mom came over and hugged me. We hadn't shared a moment like that in a long time. But in that hug, there was something real, an apology without words. She told me she was sorry for not believing me before. And as she said it, I thought about my younger self, 14 years old, standing alone while everyone praised Michael and brushed me off. I never imagined this day would come, but it did. After all that, my dad helped me find a good lawyer to handle the divorce. Amanda and her lawyer tried to play dirty, asking for alimony since I made more money, but her affair worked heavily against her. We also did a paternity test. It confirmed that Michael was the father. That news hit me even harder than finding out about the affair. I was furious, angry that the boy I loved and raised wasn't even mine. Still, I tried to stay strong. Amanda begged me to keep visiting my son, said he shouldn't be punished for what happened. But honestly, I couldn't stand to see him. He reminded me too much of Michael, and I hated that. Once the divorce was final, I moved into my own place, a bachelor pad. It felt strange living alone after marrying so young and never really having my own space. But I'm naturally independent, so I adapted quickly and even enjoyed it. Then, just a couple weeks ago, my dad called me. He told me he was thinking about changing his will. He didn't want to leave anything to Michael anymore. My dad's stubborn as hell, and once he made up his mind, he sticks to it. Michael tried to reach out to our parents, even showed up at their door begging for forgiveness. But they wouldn't let him in. Even Mom, who usually caved to Michael's tantrums, seemed done with him. That had to be hard on her. Michael never even texted me to apologize. No remorse. He just seemed upset about being cut off from the family. Dad told me he plans to leave everything to me, making sure Michael can't contest it. Michael will get just $10. I was stunned. Dad's worked hard his whole life. His assets, retirement fund, life insurance, everything adds up to nearly $3 million. The only condition is that if Dad dies before Mom, she gets to live in their house for the rest of her life, even though ownership will transfer to me. I'm fine with that. I want to take care of her in her final days. Somehow Michael found out about this. Since he couldn't reach Mom or Dad, he called me yesterday, trying to make amends. He said he's struggling with college and that after Amanda found out about the paternity, she's been pestering him for child support. He claimed he's broke, looking for part-time jobs, but finding nothing. He begged me to talk to the family, to give him a fresh start because he really needed help. I laughed in his face. I told him I was done with him. I reminded him that he should have thought about the consequences before sleeping with my wife and getting her pregnant. Michael argued I was being unfair and blamed Amanda too, and I agreed. But I reminded him I divorced her, so she was his responsibility now. He shouldn't be calling me to complain about her or the kid. Those were the consequences of his own actions. Michael started raising his voice, but I cut him off. Told him he wasn't the family's golden child anymore. He was the black sheep who slept with his own brother's wife. Then, suddenly, Michael broke down crying. Said everyone, our grandparents, relatives, had turned against him. That was true, but it wasn't my problem anymore. I told him we were done. To never call me again. I didn't consider him my brother. Since then, I've replayed that call in my head 100 times. Even with all the hate I feel for him, I never heard Michael cry. Not since we were kids. I won't lie, it shook me. It did hurt me a bit to see him so helpless. So, I guess I'm here to ask, should I talk to our parents about him? Or would I just be an asshole if I don't? A lot of people have been asking why I'm no longer in contact with my son Ethan, and some have even called me cruel. I need to explain that I'm not comfortable raising another man's child. This isn't a stepson situation. I was led to believe Ethan was my son, only to later discover he's actually my brother Michael's. Naturally, that revelation cut deep, and I cried for days. The main reason I don't want any contact with Ethan is that I no longer want Amanda in my life. If I stay connected to her child, she'll find a way to creep back in, and I need my space. You might think that's cruel or selfish, but honestly, I can't see him ever again, at least not for a very long time. Most people guessed right. It was my mom who told Michael about Dad changing his will, which led Michael to call me as a last-ditch effort to fix things. I confronted her in front of Dad, and she broke down, saying I'd punished Michael enough and that he'd learned his lesson. But Dad was firm. He told Mom that if she thought what Michael did was forgivable, then he couldn't stay married to her, because he could never forgive such a betrayal. That threat shut Mom up fast. Dad also made it clear that if she ever talked to Michael again, and we found out, she could pack her bags and leave. Like I said, Dad's stubborn. Hopefully Mom learns from this. It's been 5 months since all this went down. My relationship with my parents has actually improved over the past few months. Dad and I go golfing every weekend now, and he treats me more like a buddy than a son. Mom misses Michael, sure, but she stayed away from him. The last I heard about Michael was from my cousin. He's been asking everyone for money and eventually had to drop out of college because he couldn't afford the fees. Michael and Amanda are living together now, and he's working part-time as a mechanic. Apparently, they're raising Ethan together, which is probably for the best. I don't talk about Michael with my parents, and they don't bring him up either. For those asking, I'm doing quite well. I got promoted at work 2 months ago, so my salary's way better now. I haven't been dating anyone. I feel like I still need time and space to heal. I've been going to therapy, so we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.